Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to come to North Carolina and leave Texas. It is hot in Texas. I think it's been 105 the last 20 days in a row, no rain. There are some benefits to that. You can go out in your garden and get baked potatoes and just put them down. You can get hard-boiled eggs right from the chickens. Little different weather. Cows are grazing about 60 miles an hour to keep them starving, though. It's pretty dry, so hopefully we'll get some of this North Carolina rain. I am a psychologist by training, so I've met some very interesting people. Matter of fact, he was my 9 o'clock appointment. I'll really never forget him. I sat down and I say what psychologists say. I said, "How can I help you?" He says, "You can't help me, I'm crazy." I said, "Oh, how do you know that?" He said, "I've been the best psychiatrist, the East Coast, the West Coast. It's unanimous. They all say I'm crazy. They all say I can't be helped." I said, "What are you doing right now?" He said, "I'm seeing this guy over in North Dallas, the psychiatrist." I said, "What is he telling you to do?" You ever want to be a psychologist and make money at it? Listen to me. Always find out what people are doing right now and don't advise that. Because it's not working. They wouldn't be seeing you in the first place, you understand? So you find out what they're doing and you tell them to do something else if you want to make money being a psychologist. So I said, "What is he telling you to do?" He says, "He's telling me not to do anything. I'm crazy. I can't be helped." I said, "Tell me your story." He started telling me his story, and he had a pretty good story as stories go. But you have to understand, I've heard every story that ever exists. That's what I've done all my life, listen to other people's stories. Matter of fact, one of my greatest fears is just before I die, somebody else's life is going to flash before me instead of my own, because I spend all my time listening to their stories. Now, I'm a nice guy. If you want to tell me your story after this is over, I'll listen. But I've heard it, okay? I've heard every story that ever exists. But I'll listen if you want me to. But I was doing what psychologists do. I was maintaining eye contact. I was leaning forward. I was saying, I can understand how you feel that way. I mean, I thought I was doing pretty good. After about 15 minutes, he gets up, starts to walk out. Stops right by my chair. Said, "I thought you were one of the best. You're totally incompetent. You don't know what you're doing. I'm leaving." And he starts to leave. I said, whoa. Before you go, call me incompetent. At least you could tell me why. He said, "Sir, it would have been obvious to anybody, much less a so-called trained observer of human behavior. It would have been obvious to anybody. I have on 2 watches. They're identical watches. I bought them at the same time, the same place. They've never been over a second apart. I raised this arm so you can see that watch. I raised that arm so you can see that watch. You never noticed. You never even brought it up. You don't know what you're doing. I'm leaving." I said, whoa. Before you go, could you just do one thing for me? He said, "What?" I said, "Take this notepad." Always take notes when people talk. Take this notepad. I want you to read what's on this notepad in big, bold letters right at the top. I hand him a notepad. He looks at it. I said, he smiles a little bit. I said, "No, read it out loud." So he read these words out loud. "This man has on 2 watches. He said, "You noticed, didn't you?" I said, "Yes, I did. Matter of fact, not only did I notice, I know why you wear 2 watches. He got excited. His eyes started to get big. He started to talk fast. He said, whoa, why do I wear 2 watches? I said, "Because you're crazy. You told me that when you first came in." He sat down. We had a nice little chat. Now, I really told him that, of course, to get his attention. And I told you to get your attention. But if you do have on 2 watches, I'd slip one of them off. The person beside you would be a lot more comfortable as we talk today. Actually, I've been a psychologist for many years, and I just quit being a psychologist. I'll be honest with you. I just got tired of listening. I got tired of saying, I can understand how I feel that way. I mean, I thought, why are they doing the talking anyway? I mean, I'm the one with a PhD. Ought to be doing the talking. They're seeing a psychologist. What do they know? And so I thought that would be a good idea. Wouldn't you think that'd be a good idea? It wasn't a good idea. It didn't go over well at all. It would go something like this. The guy would say, "The reason I'm a loser is because my dad was an alcoholic." I'd say, "Well, there's another way of looking at it. Maybe your dad's an alcoholic because you're a loser." I mean, there's another way of looking at it, right? Well, people won't pay for that, you understand. They won't pay for that. And so I moved on, but it was interesting. I think one reason I got frustrated being a psychologist is because people wanted to come and tell me about their problems and wanted me to fix it, but they didn't want to change themselves. Matter of fact, most of the time they came telling me that they really weren't the problem. Somebody else was their problem. And somebody who wasn't even there. So I'm supposed to fix somebody who isn't there. I mean, I have to admit, when I first started, I was a little naive. I mean, this lady started to tell me about her husband, what he did, what he said. how he acted, what he called her, locked her in the closet. I'm thinking, man, what a jerk. What kind of gorilla is this? I mean, how did she get him? Man, he's awful. He's terrible. And then next day, I got to see him. I want to see this guy, some gorilla locked her in the closet. I'm thinking this gorilla going to come in. Guy comes in, nicely dressed, smiles, starts telling me about her, what she did, what she said. No wonder he locked her in the closet. I mean, that's the way it was. Everybody has their story. Everybody wants to tell me why somebody else is their problem. So I'm going to help you today. We're going to find out that, guess what? Nobody's your problem. You are your problem. So we're going to help you. Now, I get to talk around the country, and that's a good thing. I don't have to listen anymore. And so I'm trying to get in prevention. But even talking around the country, I get in trouble sometimes because I miscommunicate. Let me ask you, how many of you have ever heard of a guy named Mark Lowery? Anybody ever heard of Mark Lowery? For those who don't know, he is a singer. He's an entertainer. We happen to have the same last name. Well, I was booked to do a banquet in Austin, Texas. They called a couple of days before the banquet and said, could Dr. Lowery sing some songs at the banquet? Well, we kind of have a family business. My daughter was on the phone and said, no, he can't sing any songs at the banquet. Well, they called a couple of days later and says, we'll pay him $1,000 more if he will sing 2 songs at the banquet. Well, she's a sharp gal. That's $500 a song, you understand? So she's processing that. And then she remembers how I sing, and she says, no, he can't sing any songs at the banquet. So they laugh about it. They have a big ha-ha. They make jokes. Maybe they'd pay Dad one day not to sing, but never to sing. And so they just have a big joke about it. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, now surely they don't think they booked Mark Lowery, the singer. I mean, surely they don't think that. Well, I got to Austin, Texas. It was his church banquet. And so the pastor picked me up at the airport, picked up my bag, looked me in the eye and said, do you want me to call you Charles or do you want me to call you Mark? I said, Charles would be good. Then I thought, wait a minute, he just said Mark. What if he thinks I'm Mark? What if he, you know how your mind just goes nuts? I mean, you're not saying anything on the outside, but you're talking to yourself on the inside. You say, Seth, he just said Mark. Seth, what if he wants you to sing? Seth, you can't sing. How'd you get in this? How are you going to get out of this? What are you going to do? I'm going to slowly go nuts as I'm walking calmly to the car. I get to the car. He puts my bag in the back. I get in the front, and there's a Bible sitting on the front seat. I pick it up. It's the Bible we send out. Charles Lowery, Ph.D. psychologist. He has to know who I am. I mean, he's got the Bible right here. He's just a pastor. He's stressed out. He's confused. I know how that is. Deacons giving him a hard time. That's why Jesus went around healing, doing miracles, and casting out deacons. I understand that. So I can give him some deacon stress relief techniques. You know, like put their name on your golf ball. That'll make you feel better. Just knock them out there about 200 yards. Even if you hit it in the water, it really won't bother you that much. And so I can help him with some deacon relief stress techniques. So I start to relax. Not for long. He turns to me and says, we have a mutual friend. I said, oh, who is that? He says, Larnell Harris. I know you've sung with him all over the country. I said, sir, do you think I'm Mark Lowery, the singer? He says, aren't you? Pick up that Bible. Did you read this? I'm Charles Lowery, the psychologist. He looked at me and said, I thought you were both. Now, at that point, what I wanted to say was, were you abducted by aliens and sprayed with stupid juice? I mean, how could I be both? This guy thinks I'm a schizophrenic singing psychologist. I said, sir, have you told your church the singer Mark Lowery is coming? He said, I told the whole city the singer Mark Lowery is coming. I said, is there a tall building or cliff somewhere close by? He says, why? I said, so we can jump off. That's why. I said, look, buddy, we're in serious trouble here. You didn't book a psychologist. You booked a singer. Take me back to the airport. No fee, no problem. Get me out of here. He said, you're not going anywhere. I have 1,000 people at this banquet, and you're going to do it. I'm going to take you to the hotel, and a staff member will pick you up in an hour. He takes me to the hotel, and actually, it's a great hotel. He thinks I'm Mark Lowery. I'm used to speaking at some of the churches that some of you go to. And how can I say this? Most churches are cheap. And so sometimes I'm in a Motel 3. You ever been there? You only get half the Gideon's Bible in a Motel 3. And you got to put a quarter in the bed to keep it from vibrating. You've stayed in some of those places. By the way, anytime the restaurant takes Blue Cross Blue Shield, probably not the place to stay. Hour later, staff member picks me up, says, "Hello, Mark." By that time, I just say, "Hello." I get to the banquet hall. There's 1,000 people there. Pastor's wife meets me out front and said, "We know we've made a horrible mistake, but I want you to know everything's going to be fine." The pastor's talked to some people. They've heard you speak. They say you're funny. He's starting to relax. I said, "I'm glad he's starting to relax. I'm going to the bathroom about every 10 minutes. I'm not very relaxed." Well, when my time came, what are you going to say when you got 1,000 people expecting a singer? And here's what I said. Your pastor and God are on good terms. Matter of fact, God looked down and saw your pastor. And God knows your pastor very well. And God thought, that pastor, he thinks he needs a singer. He doesn't need a singer. He needs a psychologist. I'm going to send Charles instead of Mark. And so some of you today, we don't have any singing. And that's okay. Why? Because you don't need any singing. You need a psychologist, don't you? So I'm going to help you right off the bat, okay? It's going to be group therapy. You can't afford me individually. But it's going to be therapy, okay? Do it as a group. Audience participation. It doesn't work if you don't participate. So put your hand over your heart. I'm going to lead you a little pledge. Repeat after me. I, being of sound mind. Y'all got to participate here. It's group therapy. It's not going to work if you don't participate, all right? I did the Florida Insurance Convention last year. They participated, okay? You don't want to be second best to Florida, okay? Okay, start again, okay? I, being of sound mind, do hereby acknowledge that I have not, nor have I ever, or will I ever, control the universe. Therefore, I resign as general manager of the universe. How don't you feel better already? See? He's God, you're not. Get over it. You see, I know where most of your stress comes from. I mean, I've had psychological training. I know where most of your stress comes from. There's one person you're trying to straighten out, isn't there? I mean, they've already come to mind. I mean, there's one. If you could just straighten out that one person, and by the way, if that's your goal in life, to straighten out somebody, the only person you can be is a mortician. That's the only guy that can straighten people out, and they'll stay straight. Otherwise, you've got to get up every morning and re-straighten them again. We're going to teach you how to relax a little bit, how to stress less, and relate a little bit more. Now, as we talk today, I want you to decide that there's going to be one thing that you're going to do different. See, what happens is you come here in general speech, it's like going to church. You hear a general sermon about general things, and in general, you generally decide, I'm generally going to do generally better than what I generally did. Generally went in there, and generally you go out there, and generally you don't do any different, do you? Because life didn't live in general. Life is lived very specifically. In fact, I do a lot of banquets. I speak late at night. I eat a lot of rubber chicken, and I was having some stomach problems. I went to my doctor, and I gave him my symptoms. He said, "Charles, I think you have an ulcer." I said, "I can't have an ulcer. I'm a stress expert. I do not have an ulcer." I was getting an ulcer thinking I had an ulcer. Well, come to find out I didn't have an ulcer. My wife has always diagnosed my illnesses, and she diagnosed this one. She's always said I had too much gall, and I did. They took out my gallbladder, and I was fine. But in the process of talking to my doctor, he said, "You drink a lot of water during the day." I said, "Not really." He said, "What do you drink?" I said, "I drink Diet Coke." He said, "How many do you drink?" I said, "More than I should." He said, "How many is that?" I said, "More than the general population." He said, "No, how many do you drink?" I said, "Probably more than you, Paul." He said, "No, how many do you drink?" I said, "I drink too many or too much." He said, "No, Charles, give me a number between 2 and 15. How many do you drink?" 10. 10? That's too much. I've been trying to tell you that for the last 5 minutes. Now, what was he trying to do? He was trying to get something from my subconscious to my conscious level. You see, most of the things that you need to do something about are not at the conscious level, they're at your subconscious level. Why? Because you're in the rut of life. It's like driving your car. I mean, used to when you started, you'd get to think about it, but now your car gets to work and you don't even know how it got there. People say, "Did you drive?" And you say, "Well, the car's out there," but you don't remember any of it. Why? Because it's now in your subconscious. A lot of your difficulties, a lot of your stress comes because there's a lot of stuff in your subconscious that I'm going to try to bring to your conscious level today so you can get specific about it, try to change it a little bit. You see, and you're not going to change everything, just one little thing. I like to play golf, but I wouldn't play a golf course that had one hole 7,288 yards long. I mean, it'd be too discouraging. I mean, even if you hit it 90 times, you might not even see the hole yet. Some guys over there in the ditch say, what happened? I fell in the ditch. I couldn't find the hole. Got tired. Nobody would play that course. It's too discouraging. So they add par 3s, par 4s, par 5. So you're going to do one simple thing that will affect the big things in life. Going to bring it from subconscious to conscious level. And then we're going to, well, let's put it this way. Most of you already know what that is. You already know what one thing is that keeps burning you over and over again, that keeps you from being that person that you need to be, or take it to the next level of living. It's like let's just give you a visual illustration. Let's just say we're having a picnic and we're going to grill some steaks and maybe watch a ball game or something, and we're all just kind of laughing, having fun, and getting ready to put the steaks on, and the grill's good and hot, and we're just talking, and our friend comes in. Let's just call him Bill. Bill comes in, we wave to Bill, Bill waved to us, and before we can do anything, Bill puts his hand on the grill and burns himself severely. Wow, man, you see that? They take him to the hospital and call and check on him, find out he's doing pretty good, and find out he's out of the hospital, kind of had to bandage him up a little bit, burned himself pretty good, but he's getting along okay. And it's about 3 or 4 weeks later, having another cookout, going to have another little party, and we're about to put steaks on again. The grill's real hot, and Bill comes in. And you can kind of feel it tense up a little bit because, he's close to the grill. And so, should you say something? Should you not say something? And before anybody can do anything, he puts his hand on the grill and burns himself again. Now, if we're just standing around talking, it may go something like this. That Bill, he's a nice guy. Our kids play with his kids, on the same soccer team, and he goes to down to the church, and seems pretty normal in just about every area of life. But when it comes to grills, the guy's just nuts, isn't he? Well, I don't want to be too blunt, but most of you're pretty normal. But there's one area of your life that keeps burning you over and over again, that keeps you from being that person and having that great life you need to have, you see. It's almost like, remember the old psychiatrist joke where the guy goes to see a psychiatrist and you got 2 burned ears? And the psychiatrist said, man, what happened? He said, I was ironing, the phone rang, picked up the iron. And he said, well, I know, but both your ears are burned. He said, they called back. Well, see, that's the way habits are. Habits call you back, and you end up doing the same dumb thing over and over again, and you wonder why you don't get to the next level in your career or in your marriage or in your life. Why? Because the same thing burns you over and over and over again. So we're going to get specific about it. We're going to try to find that one thing. And then here's a key you need to think about. Most people, when they get to that level then, are trying to stop doing something. But here's the key to life. You not only have to stop something, you have to start something else. You see, there's no such thing as self-control. If you just try, everything you resist persists. If you're just trying to stop something, you'll be like that Australian Aborigine who got a new boomerang, spent the rest of his life trying to throw away the old one. And that's the way it is sometimes, isn't it? I mean, there's no such thing as self-control. The more you try not to do something, the more it persists. What's the first thing you think of when you're going to die? Food. Why? Because that's what you're resisting, you see. And so you have to decide. Well, let's see if I can illustrate that. Let's just visualize that there's an elephant right there. See that elephant? And let's make him bold. Let's put pink pajamas on him and put him on yellow roller skates. See that elephant? Ain't he funny looking? Pink pajamas, yellow roller skates. And I'm going to push it. I'm going to push that elephant sort of roll down there. Push that elephant. And watch that elephant roll on those roller skates. You got it in your mind? Visualize that elephant in your mind with those pink pajamas. Go visualize it. Okay, now get it out of your mind. No, get it out. Get the elephant out. Get the pink pajamas. No, get it out. Get those yellow roller skates. Get them out of your mind. Go ahead and get it out. You got it out? Oh, came back in. Get it out. Have you got it out yet? If you got it out, let me tell you, what did you do? You replaced it with a monkey in yellow pajamas or something. It may be weird, Why? Because you have to stop and start. Most people spend all their life trying to stop stuff, and they never start the replacement, you see. The only way to stop waiting is to get sick of waiting and decide to be a swimmer. Okay? So at some point in time in your life, you probably got sick of crawling, and you decide to be a walker. You see, you got to get sick of this and decide to do this, because this is so much better in the long run for you. So we're going to stop, and we're going to start. So let's just say you came to my house, and you said, Charles, this is a great house. Great. But your furniture is pitiful. I mean, it's like late attic, early Sears. This is pitiful furniture. I mean, this chair is awful. This table is awful. This is junk. And look, I got my pickup. Let's just take it down the dump. This is the only place this belongs, is the dump. I said, you'll help me get rid of this junk? Yeah, I got a pickup. Let's do it now. I mean, now's the time. So we get that junk. We take it down the dump, and we get rid of it. And you bring me back, and then thank you for getting that junk out of my life. I feel so much better. Man, this is great. I got kind of tired. Don't have a chair, but man, I'd rather sit on the floor than that. It's a pitiful chair. It's time to eat. Don't have a table, but I got rid of that pitiful table. Well, I'll just eat on the floor. You know where I'll be in about a week if I don't get any new furniture? I'll be back at the dump getting out the same old junk. And that's what most people do. They spend all their life trying not to do stuff, and they end up doing the very same thing that they're trying not to do. Now, what's one specific thing that I can help you with to change your life? As I travel around the country, most people are what I call wired and tired. What would help you is just looking at the pace of your life. The pace of your life. You see, remember when we used to have leftovers for meals? Now we don't even have the original meal anymore. But we used to even have leftovers, didn't we? I've discovered people have nothing left over anymore. You need to learn to set some kind of pace where you can set a priority in your life rather than just live it by pressure all the time. It's like, let me ask you, if somebody gave you a free vacation, let's just say at this convention, we're going to win a free vacation, and we're going to the Caribbean, out there in the island, beautiful hotel, 7 days, and the flight's paid for, everything, and you win, and you look at the flight, and the flight takes off at Charlotte, and it makes a connection in Atlanta, and then you get a direct flight over the Caribbean. And the connection in Atlanta, as you look at it, is 2 minutes. And you said, what? 2-minute connection in Atlanta? And the travel agent said, oh yeah, I think this could work for you. I think if your flight to Atlanta is early, and the flight from Atlanta to the Caribbean is late, and the gates are right next to each other, I think this could work for you. And you'd say, man, I don't want to live like that. You realize that's how most people live their life. And they wonder what's wrong with their relationships. They wonder what's wrong with their quality of life. Why? Because your area code ought to be 911. Everything is an emergency. Why? Because you don't plan on anything going wrong. And when one little thing goes wrong, your whole life becomes an emergency. Your whole life becomes stress. Your whole life becomes crisis. Let me give you another example. You can tell I live in airports. How many of you have ever been late for a flight? Anybody in here been late for a flight? Okay, some honest people. Let me ask you about your behavior. Were you kind? Were you gentle? Did you look for little old ladies to help in the airport? No, you ran over little old ladies in the airport. How do I know that? Because I've been late and I've run over little old ladies. Why? Because when you're late, it becomes all about you. All about you. Some of you have gotten your life so fast-paced, the connections are so narrow, and you're so behind, it's become all about you. And you wonder, why am I so miserable? Why am I so stressed? Well, how do you handle stress? I'm going to teach you how to stress less, relate more, but you have to also understand there's certain things you can control and certain things you can't control. Most of our stress comes from trying to control things, and you've already resigned as general manager of the universe, but you'll take it back over tomorrow. You're trying to control things you can't control. I call them power goals and process goals. And I'll give you an illustration so you can see the difference between the two. For example, let's take grades. When I was a kid, my dad had this reward system. $5 for an A, $4 for a B, $3 for a C. You get worse than that, I'm going to kick you in the pants. That was his reward system for grades. Now, did that help me? It might have, but actually it causes stress. Why? Because he was rewarding not a process goal, something I had complete control over. He was rewarding a power goal, something that had another power other than me that was involved in it, primarily the teacher. Let me tell you how grades work. Grades are pretty much a prediction of IQ, which is intelligence quotient, which is pretty much passed down from generation to generation. Some of you didn't quite get that. Let me put it another way. Some of you didn't pass down a whole lot. You understand what I'm saying? If it's genetics, you didn't get designer genes, they got blue genes, you understand? And so they didn't get passed down A genetics. They probably got passed down C genetics, and that's okay. By the way, there's nothing wrong with C students. University presidents will say, be really good to our A students, they'll come back and be our professors. But be really good to the C students, because they'll come back and buy some building. Because C students relate to the world a whole lot better than A students do, and they're usually more successful. So nothing wrong with being a C student. But if you want to reward your kid for a grade, you're going to set up that stress. Now, not only is IQ a factor, teacher personality is a factor. Some kids just don't get along with certain teachers. Sometimes it's the teacher grading system. Some teachers only give 2 A's in the whole class. Let's say your kid's the third smartest kid in the class. You want him to eliminate kid number 2 and move up? I mean, you got to decide, what are you really rewarding here? So, you see, that is not a process goal. That's a power goal. Trying to reward that will just cause more stress. Now, you can break a power goal up into a process goal. For example, you might decide that studying 1 hour every day is part of the process of being a good student. So you would reward something the child had total control over, studying 1 hour every day, as opposed to grades. You see, that's rewarding something that the child has total control over. You reward your process goals, you see. Now, hopefully, the process has something to do with the power goals. If you don't, matter of fact, if you don't know the process of being successful in the insurance business, you don't have a job. You just go to the lottery every week because you don't know what works, you see. So you have to know the process of what I speak a lot to car dealerships. Here's what car salesmen tell me. I'll say, what's your goal? My goal is to sell 25 cars this month. Well, that's a power goal. That's not a process goal unless you buy all of them yourself, and then you've got financial problems. And so you have to set a process goal, and that may be that you spend twice as much time with quality prospects this month as you did last month. Indirectly, that will affect the power goal, but you reward yourself for the process goal. People who don't want to be stressed out all the time, matter of fact, successful people manage their own morale. They don't let other people manage it for them. Like, let's just say you have somebody at work, and I'll ask this person, and they'll say, well, I want that person to like me. Well, that's a power goal. A process goal would be something like this, that you call that person by name, and you ask them about something personal, how their kids are doing, or that kind of thing. You do that every day for 2 weeks, and then you reward yourself for being the kind of person that you want to be. It has nothing to do with whether the person likes you or not. Because if you that's a power goal, and that will make you stressful and miserable, and probably everybody around you. So you know the difference between process goals and power goals. And they're specific, and you're going to have one, as we finish today, that you're going to start, and probably something that you're going to stop. So what can I help you with? Well, everything moves at the speed of relationships. I was talking to Hewlett-Packard leadership team in Houston, Texas. They're IT engineers, the software, the people who develop the servers for Facebook, basically what they were. And I sat in the session before my session, and I understood not a word they were talking about. I mean, they were talking cloud computing, and I'm kind of roadkill on the information highway anyway, but I had no clue. And I turned to the president guy, and I said, are you sure I'm supposed to talk to this group? He said, you do what you do on relationships. I've heard it, and I promise you, Every person in here needs it. Because it doesn't matter what you do, everything moves at the speed of a relationship. Let me just tell you, in your personal life or in your professional life, the most pain you have and the most pleasure you have will come in the area of relationships. And the most success you have and the most failure you have. So I'm going to just take that word people, P.E.O.P.L.E, and see if I can teach you how to relate better and stress less. P stands for perspective. Remember, we all talk to ourselves. In fact, the most important conversations you have are probably the ones you have with yourself. And most of us, if we're not careful, start to drift in the way we talk to ourselves. I love to go to the beach. I think deep down I've been called to speak, teach, and go to the beach. And so I go as much as I can. And I've even been known to give reduced rates close to the beach because I like to go. And I go in the ocean. Every time I'm there, if it's just not freezing, I just go jump in the ocean. I just like it. I just like to jump in the ocean. And people say, what about sharks? Well, you hear the music, you get out of the water. But otherwise, just enjoy it. And so I remember when I was first time I got to be in the ocean, well, by myself, when my parents weren't with me. They sat on the beach, and a friend and I got to go out in the ocean for the first time by ourselves. And we thought we were big stuff out in the ocean, and we were just swimming around, having fun. And after about 30 minutes, I looked up to see my parents, and they had moved. They had picked up the umbrella and the towels and moved about a half a mile down the beach. And I thought, they're trying to lose me, my parents. They've moved. And then I look at the hotel we're staying in, and the hotel has moved a half a mile down the beach. And then being a bright kid, I thought, wait a minute. Hotels can't move. I moved. And I didn't even know it. You see, you start to drift in the way you think, and you don't even know it. And here's the key. The body is just incredibly stupid, my friend. Most of your stress comes from you, your brain telling your body stuff that isn't true. I've married a beautiful woman who is different from me in terms of her personality. You know, most of us are attracted to opposites. And opposites attract from a distance, but opposites attack up close. You understand what I'm saying? The very things that attracted you now tends to irritate you a little bit. Guy asked his wife, what you want for Christmas? She said, a divorce. He said, I hadn't planned on spending that much. And so, you know, it happened. So when I married my wife, I knew she was different from me. And I liked that because she was organized. You know, that kind of personality. I mean, I knew it's probably a little overboard when she wanted to clean up the rice at the wedding before we went on the honeymoon. I mean, she likes clean stuff. I mean, her closet's color-coded, shoes face north, you know, that kind of thing. And picks up stuff all the time. You know, I put my Diet Coke down, turn around, and it's in the dishwasher. You know, the glass is gone. Or put the paper down, it's in the trash. Asked her, what do you think God's trying to teach me? He said, He's trying to teach you, enjoy things while you have them. You never know when you're going to lose them. And so, But you know, and I've learned to live with that. I mean, sometimes it still irritates me a little bit. If I get up at night and go to the bathroom and come back, the bed's made, I say, that's a little much, honey. But when we were younger, she used to go in the summer, she would go stay with her parents. You know, I'd have to stay and work. And so she would, for like a week, go stay with her parents and take the kids and, you know, sit by the pool, pretend she's rich again. And so I would stay home and work. And so when she's there, I do what I'm supposed to do. I hang up my breeches and that kind of stuff. But when she's gone, I live the way I want to live. I mean, I like to sleep in a made-up bed. I just don't like to make them up. So I sleep in a different bed every night. I go to sleep in a different bed. You know? I pull out the sock drawer. Just leave it open. You got to get socks again tomorrow. So just leave it open. You know, I kind of eat where I want to eat, sleep where I want to sleep, leave stuff everywhere. And you know, she knows how I live when she's gone. So a couple of days before she's going to come home, she calls, says, I'm coming home. You need to do what you need to do. And I call a teenager and pay her minimum wage. She cleans up the house and things are fine. Except this particular week, I'd been on about a 5-day binge. And the house was looking pretty bad. And in our neighborhood at that time, there'd been a couple of break-ins in the neighborhood. So people kind of had that on their mind. People kind of breaking in, you know, kind of a little nervous, stressful. Well, a friend comes over, and I'm kind of working in the yard, and says, this is back during Tab days. Remember Tab said, you want a Tab? I said, yeah. He said, well, you got any? He wanted a Tab me to get. I said, well, yeah, there's some in the refrigerator. Go in there and get one, and then bring me one, and we'll take a break. Well, he goes in my house and goes nuts. I mean, he said, Charles, the crooks have ransacked. Come here, quick. We may catch them. They may be in your house. And then he's just going nuts. And he got me stressed out because I thought, man, the crooks are in my house. And he says, hurry, quick. And I knew I didn't want to hurry because I'm not a macho guy. I mean, I don't want to catch a crook. I mean, what would you do with him if you caught him? I mean, it's like those dogs chasing those big old trucks. I mean, what would they do if they caught it? I don't know. And so I'd much rather them say, isn't he a coward? And doesn't he look natural? You know what I mean? And so, I mean, you can be a hero for about 5 minutes, but you can be dead the rest of your life, you understand? So I'm not going to catch a crook. So I'm walking real slow, and he's just going nuts and hollering. And when I get there, he said, man, he said, you won't believe it upstairs. They've gone through the beds, they've gone through the drawers, they've ransacked your whole house. Go up there and make a list of what's missing, and I'll call the sheriff. So I run upstairs and realize nothing's missing. And the sheriff's coming to my house. I run downstairs, hang up the phone. I said, you're not calling the sheriff. He said, why not? I said, because nobody's broken in this house. He said, who did all this? I said, I did. You keep your mouth shut if you want to Diet Coke or Tab too. Now, did he have a lot of stress? Oh, yeah. Did I have a lot of stress? Oh, yeah. Why? Because we told ourselves things that were not true, you see. It's easy in life to learn the wrong things, isn't it? A friend of mine, every time he'd try to house train his dog, what he'd do is take the dog, every time he'd go to the bathroom on the carpet, he'd hit him with a paper and throw him out the window. I said, how's it going? He said, not very good. The dog runs in there, goes to the bathroom on the carpet, and jumps out the window. Well, he learned the wrong thing. And if you're not careful, you'll go through life learning the wrong thing. Now, why do people learn the wrong things? Well, let me just give you a couple of reasons how you get messed up. And I don't have time to do therapy. You can't afford me anyway individually. But let me just give you a couple of things. First is delay. Most of us are going to change. And we know what to do. But when are we going to do it? Tomorrow. When are you going to go to diet? Tomorrow. When are you going to get up 10 minutes early so you'll have a little pace of grace in your life? Tomorrow. Everybody's going to, it's all about delay, isn't it? Remember when I was a kid, remember the Rolling Stones? Remember them? I think somebody said they're on tour. It must be the Botox tour. They got to be old. But when I was young, they had this song called Time is on my side. Little group in the back going, yes it is, yes it is, yes it is. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Time is not. Matter of fact, the longer you do something, the harder it is to quit. Time's not on your side. Delay will get you in more trouble than you could ever dream. Another one is dependency. You see, here's what I used to tell my patients. Life is plain and simple. You don't want to do what I'm telling you to do? Don't come see me anymore. You haven't had enough pain yet. You're not ready to change. Go out there and have some more pain, then you'll be ready to listen. But see, we cover for people and they don't suffer the consequences, and so they don't change. It's unhelpful, harmful help, you see. Anytime your self-esteem is in somebody else's behavior, you got a dysfunctional relationship. And by the way, mothers are the worst, because mothers, you see, it's normal for a mother to have a nurturing, cover relationship. I mean, you got to cover for a 4-year-old because he's dumb. He'll put his finger in the light socket. And so you got to cover for him. And that's appropriate for, but it's inappropriate for them, you see. And so you want to start that letting go process early. See, like a boy, he's going to go outside. What does mother say? Put your coat on. He said, I don't want to put my coat on. It's not that coat. You put your coat on. I don't want you put your coat on. You put that coat on. You're not going outside. Now, why does she do that? She doesn't want the other mothers in the neighborhood to say, what kind of mother is that? Let that little boy go out there without a coat. You see, her identity gets wrapped up in somebody else's behavior. Or she ought to let the little twerp go out there without a coat. Freeze his rear end off, and he'd be knocking on the door saying, it's cold outside. I need a coat. And he'd grow up to be an adult instead of living in a mobile home by his mother for the rest of his life. So we have dependency issues. We have delay issues. We have detour issues. We change, but we change the wrong thing. And then most of us have denial. which has to do, I don't have time to go into it, but has to do with deception. E stands for deception. E stands for energy. We spend more energy covering up the problem than dealing with the problem. N stands we get negative. We blame everybody else. I stands we get isolated. Then we get alienated from people. That links in the process, and we get back up in a vicious circle. Then the other one is desert. People don't change because of, and I use desert so you'll remember, we want pleasure. We want comfort instead of clarity. We want to feel better instead of act better. You see, we want to get something. We want to get something to relieve the pain. You see, if you can relieve the pain, or where you don't feel the pain, then you won't change the behavior. So we have what we call in our society pain killers, and so we get in all kind of addictive behavior. But that's another seminar. Sorry you brought that up. But anyway, we got perspective. So your perspective. Why do you have to constantly work on your perspective? Because we have a tendency to look at what's wrong with everything. My daughter, my kids have taught me a lot. Matter of fact, they've taught me so much they want royalties nowadays. But they've taught me a lot. And my daughter, Brianne, I was going to teach her how to ride the bicycle. Fall of the year, went to Wet and Wild Water Park. Not a car in the parking lot. Just this huge parking lot. I said, Brianne, look at this asphalt. You're going to be a bike rider just like your big sisters. I had to learn how to ride on sand and rock, but you, Brianne, you're going to go on asphalt. You're going to go fast. You're going to be a good bike rider. It's going to be a great day. She was excited. I was excited. We got that bike out. I said, look at all that asphalt. I said, Daddy, what's that way down there? I said, don't worry about that. You're going to be a bike rider. I said, Daddy, that's a pole. Well, I know that's a pole, Brianne. Look at this asphalt. You're going to be a bike rider. What if I hit the pole? Yeah, get the pole, Brianne. Look at all this asphalt. Hit the pole, it's going to hurt. It's not going to hurt because you're not at the pole. Now get on a bicycle. You know how to teach a kid how to ride a bike, don't you? Run like crazy, feel the wind against your face. You're a bike rider. What if I hit that pole? Yeah, get the pole, Brianne. Look at all that asphalt. Go, go. And I let her go, and she headed straight for the pole. Daddy, I'm headed for the pole. I said, turn it to the right. Just look at all that asphalt. Daddy, I can't turn it right. I'm headed for the pole. Turn it to the left. Look at all. Just turn, Daddy. She mutilated that pole. By the time I got there, the lips stuck out, tears in her eyes. I told you I was going to hit the pole. I said, I know, Brianne, because you focused on the pole. Now, let me tell you about your life. I don't know you personally, but I know about your life. Most of you, your life is 80 to 85%. Smooth sailing, feel the wind against your face, not a problem in the world. But 15 to 20% of your life is problems, difficulties, poles, polettes, jerks, jerkettes. Just life. That's everybody's life. I speak to businesses all over the country. There's always a group in every day. They come to talk about the problem, then the pole, then the pole, then the problem. Here a pole, there a pole, everywhere, pole. They just always mad. I speak in churches, same way. You got a group in every church, talk about the poles and the problem. Same way in your family. I guarantee you got a pole in your family. Every family tree has a sap. You got a pole in your family, don't you? Instead of enjoying Christmas dinner, what did you do? I know what you did. You talked about the pole, didn't you? What if the pole comes? What if the pole doesn't come? What if the pole brings her? What if the pole comes drunk? What if he brings her that other pole? What are we going to do? And boy, life becomes miserable, doesn't it? Why? Because that's what you focus on. And by the way, it's always been that way. Always has been. Remember there was a business that had a relocation plan many, many years ago. Matter of fact, they had a chance to really relocate at a nice place. You know what they called the place? The Promised Land. I mean, how good a place was that? Not good enough. 10 came back not with grapes, with gripes. Not going to the Promised Land. Poles, big poles, giants, not going. Only 2 came back with grapes. Look how big these grapes is. The Promised Land. Look how big. Oh, that's proof, all right. Only big giants could grow big grapes like that. Not going. Most people don't go to the Promised Land of your life. Why? Because you're focused on the wrong things. Folks, there's something wrong with everything. There's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with your company. There's something wrong with this association. There's something wrong with your car. You don't know it yet, but there's something wrong with everything. And if that's what you're going to focus on, you're going to end up being a very miserable person. You might have heard about Grandma and Grandpa. They took their grandkids on vacation. They got on the interstate, saw this big sign, Natural Park. They thought, oh, that'd be good for the grandkids, nature trails, things like that. They pull in and realize this really is a natural park. I think politically correct would be clothing optional lifestyle. Some of you may know it as a nudist camp. I realize this is North Carolina. For you bubbas, I'm talking naked people. You understand what I'm saying? So they got their grandkids there. They're trying to get the car turned around. Here's 4 people on bicycles without a stitch coming right at them. They can't get the car turned around quick enough. They're trying to put the hands so the grandkids can't see, but you know grandkids, they're jumping at the back. Whoop, pop, 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 look at those people. Look at those people on those bicycles. Look at them. Look at them. They look at them. They don't have look at them. They don't have their safety helmets on. Now, how could they focus on that? Because that's what they've been taught to focus on. You see, you have to teach yourself to focus on these. Because, see, what happens is you'll start comparing, and the world's just a great Ponzi scheme. The world is always trying to tell you that you can have risk. You know, we can have this reward, but no risk. You can have pleasure without any consequences. It's always telling you this is what you need in order to be happy. And as a rule, man's a fool. When he's hot, he wants it cool. When he's cool, he wants it hot. Always want what's not. As a rule, man's a fool. I mean, you know that, don't you? And so we're always sucked into that. And we start comparing what we have with what we think everybody else has. It's you see, we start comparing our facts with some fantasy out there. I'll have these guys come in and they'd be all nervous because they're seeing a psychologist, you know, and they look around and I look around because I've seen some strange people. I mean, they look around, I look around too. I don't know what they're looking for. I mean, one guy was so paranoid he thought the people in front of him would follow him. That's paranoia, you understand? So, and they look around, I look around, and so finally, he'll lean forward, and I'll lean forward, and I say, "What's your problem?" He said, "Oh, Doc, it's terrible. It's awful." "Well, what is it?" "Oh, it's terrible. Tell me." He'll say something like this: "I think I married the wrong person." I said, "That's your problem? That's it? You married the wrong person?" He said, "That's it." I said, "Hey, I got good news for you. Everybody else did too. What else you want to talk about?" He said, "What do you mean?" "Well, in a sense, everybody married the wrong person. You married that perfect person. They look good. They smell good. They never went to the bathroom. Now you got a real person. They don't always look good. They don't always smell good. Spend their life in the bathroom. You got a real person here." But see, what happens is you start comparing your fact with some fantasy out there. These guys will tell me, "Well, Dr. Lowery, I'm falling in love with my secretary. She dresses better than my wife does. She listens better. She's in a better mood." I say, "Hey, got an answer for that. Pay your wife. Let her off at 4 o'clock. She'll be in a better mood. She'll dress better." You start comparing your mate with those Hollywood women. Those Hollywood women don't exist. Kate Winslet, she's a Hollywood star. She was on the cover of a national magazine. They airbrushed 10 pounds off of her. The computer generated a better body, but she doesn't really look like that. Those Hollywood women don't look like that. The pictures you see, they've been putting makeup on them for 5 hours, then they touch up the picture. They don't look like that. I don't look like this. You see me when I got up this morning. I mean, what the mattress did to my face. I work to look like this. You understand? This is the best I can do. You see, I'd have these ladies that say, "Oh, Dr. Lowery, my husband would just listen the way you'd listen. If he'd just be compassionate the way you're compassionate. If he'd just look into my eyes when I talk the way you look into my eyes." I said, "Pay him $150 an hour like you're paying me. He'll look in your eyes when you talk." You see, you have 2 choices in life, my friend. You can tear up that fantasy that does not exist and accept your job, your family, your mate as a gift. Or else you'll spend the rest of your life tearing up that job or that family or that mate, trying to look like a fantasy that does not exist. And you'll end up being a very miserable person. Change your perspective. Then E stands for expectations. Learn to communicate what you expect in certain situations. You see, what happens with relationships, most stress comes from miscommunication. Like the old couple on the porch couldn't hear too well. She turned to him and said, "I'm proud of you." He looked back and said, "I'm tired of you too." And before you know it, they're in an argument. We miscommunicate. In fact, I had a couple in Dallas. They had 4 kids, preschool kids. He was in commercial real estate, and he was making tons of money. Back then, Dallas was kind of like Monopoly. You were kind of just changing properties and getting lots of money. And later, it became the go-to-jail card for a lot of them. But anyway, at the time, they were making lots of money in commercial real estate. And he wore like Italian suits, $4,000 or $5,000 suits, you know, with real people's names on them. And mine has dry clean only in it, but real people's names. And And his wife was exhausted with these preschool kids. So every time at the end of the day, the car would go by, and she would say, "Daddy's home," and all these kids would run to the door and meet their dad. And you know what preschool kids carry around. I won't go into it. It's kind of gross. But they'd jump on Dad and get on those Italian suits, get this on it, and jump. And he'd throw one down. The other one would jump on him and throw this one down. And then he and his wife would almost get in a fight every night. So they come to see the psychologist. So I asked the wife, "What are your expectations when your husband comes home from work?" "Oh, if he would just help me with these kids, I'm so exhausted." I said, "Have you ever asked him for help?" "Well, we end up just fighting about it." I said, "Well, I'm going to see him next." So I get him in there. I said, "What are your expectations when you come home from work?" He said, "Oh, I know my wife needs help with these kids, but I wear these expensive suits. And if she would just let me go in the back and not announce that I'm coming so I could change clothes, maybe get in a rubber suit, something I could hose down, and just take a little break, then I'll help her with these kids." I said, "Have you ever told her that?" He said, "Well, not really. We just fight about it." I said, "I'm going to bring her back in here. You look her in the eyes and you tell her what you just told me." He comes back in. He looks her in the eyes. He tells her, "Just give me a break so I can get on my rubber suit." And we literally solved their problem in 35 minutes. Now, I charge them for the full hour. Because if you're good, get the money, right? Why? Because we decided to talk it out instead of have it out. Most of your stress comes from the fact that you're miscommunicating, that you don't know what that person needs in order to be the friend or be the partner that you want them to be. What happens, I was speaking to a company, and actually there's a personality test called the Myers-Briggs. Some of you might have taken it. It's about how you relate to the world, and I was doing some vice presidents of a company. And then I was relating to the president what the strengths and weaknesses of these particular people were. And this one particular vice president, I was going through that, and then I said, "And by the way, for this year, instead of giving him a bonus, I think if you gave him an extra week's vacation, that will motivate him a lot better than what the bonus would do." And he looked up at me and said, "You can tell that from a psychological test?" I said, "No, I asked him." You see, this particular guy, last daughter was graduating from high school, and the other daughter was graduating from college. And it was the last year they'd probably have a family vacation all together, and he wanted them all to go to Europe and take an extended vacation, and they needed an extra week. You see, I knew that. Why? Because I asked him that. I talked to him. I knew him better than the president of the company did, and I only met him one day, and this guy was with him every day of the week. You see, you have to decide to communicate. Share what your expectations are so you'll know what motivates people, what encourages people. So, perspective. Share your expectations. Learn how to communicate. O stands for overlook. Most stress. When I used to see people, matter of fact, I was amazed of how many people, their stress level was over things that did not matter. They let small irritations build up, and it just didn't matter in the big scheme of things. Nobody is more in prison than the person is in the jail of small irritations, I guarantee you. And it's in all of us. We have to guard that. There's something in us that we don't want people to get away with stuff, right? Remember that we're general manager of the universe. It's in me just like it's in you. Guy called me at 2 a.m. one time to tell me my dog was barking. I called him at 2 a.m. the next night to tell him I didn't have a dog. I just wanted him to, experience what I experienced. I didn't want him to get away with it. And so that's in all of us, and we have to guard against that. But you see, if you're not careful, you go overboard. You make it a bigger deal than it really is. Why? Because putting them down kind of builds you up. It's like this lady, she said her son was home for the day, and she asked him to put the clothes in the dryer. Only thing she asked him to do, just put the clothes in the dryer sometime a day. Got home, forgot to put the clothes in the dryer. And she pitched a fit. She preached him a sermon, 20 minutes of, why can't you do anything? The only thing I asked, just went at, how some mothers can actually put their mouth in gear and go off and leave it. You know what I mean? And so she just went after him. Said about 10 minutes into the sermon, he interrupted her and said, "Mom, could I ask you a question?" And she said, "What?" Says, when you're up at the club talking to your friends, and they say, my son's on drugs, or my boy's in prison, or my daughter's pregnant, we don't know what we're going to do. Do you say, "That's nothing. My boy forgets to put the clothes in the dryer. She said, all of a sudden I started to realize just how upset do I get about things that may not really matter. Matter of fact, there's a play called Philadelphia, Here I Come. Interesting play because the play takes place in Ireland, and the young boy decides to go to America to seek his fortune. But the young man has left home. Matter of fact, he left home, said he hated his father, never wanted to see him again. But now he's coming back home one last time because he's going to America to seek his fortune, and he knows he'll probably never see his mother and father again. And by the way, let me just tell you fathers, I've noticed that there's two characteristics in men. And if you have these two characteristics, there's a strong possibility that your teenage boy will grow up to hate you. These are the two characteristics. If you're always right, you're never wrong about anything, and you're always working, be careful. Well, he decided to come home one last time to say goodbye to Mom and maybe even say goodbye to Dad. Well, he comes home. It goes well with Mom. It always did. It didn't go well with Dad. It never did. But late that night, Dad and son, they bump into each other at the refrigerator for one of those late midnight snacks. And I guess their inhibitions were low or maybe just sleepy. But for the first time, father and son actually started to talk, communicate, smile at each other, reminisce. And they brought up a fishing trip. And the boy said, I'll never forget that blue boat. And Dad said, well, son, it was a red boat. He said, no, Dad, it's the only time you ever took me fishing. It was blue. He said, I rented the boat. It was red. He said, I don't care who rented it, Dad. I know this one. It was blue. He said, you've never been sure about anything in your life. It was red. And they started hollering over the color of a boat. And they go to bed angry. And the play is powerful because the curtain is closing. And the mother's on the porch. The boy has his suitcase out by the bus stop. He's going to America. He'll probably never see his parents again. She has a tear in her eyes. She's waving to her son, and he's waving back. And as the curtain closes, you can look through the house, and in the back of the house is the husband, the father, with his back turned. And you know there's a man and a son who'll never have a relationship. And the reason is the color of a boat. And you say, I can't believe people fight over that. Hey, people fight over that every day of their lives. I guarantee you, at your job right now, somebody's fighting over something just as insignificant. Doesn't matter. Overlook it. It will keep you from being that person that you need to be. So, P-E-O. Expectation. P-E-O-P. Another P. Partners. We live in a world that's becoming a world of cooperation instead of competition. We live in a world that's becoming a world of partners rather than policy. We live in a world where how good a team member you're going to be may be more important than how valuable you are. Butch Lee was an All-American. His coach was Al McGuire. And Al McGuire sat him down before his senior year and says, Butch, we may have a chance of winning the national championship. But Butch, let me explain to you what the year's going to be like. We're going to be a great basketball team. And every game, we're going to have the ball about 20 minutes. And out of that 20 minutes, Butch, we have 5 players on the team. So out of that 20 minutes, Butch, you're going to have the ball maybe 4 minutes, 5 minutes. So you're a good player. And when you have the ball, Butch, you're great. You're an All-American. But whether we win the championship or not, Butch, is not going to happen when you have the ball, like 4 or 5 minutes. You're going to win the championship. We're going to win because of what you do that other 34 or 35 minutes when you don't have the ball. And that's how all great teams are. Just about everybody I know, when they have the ball, gives it their best. But what kind of great team player are you? It's not really in our world how valuable, it's how valuable you are to the team. Because guess what? There's going to be another time when you're going to need somebody's help yourself. Years ago, I used to do a lot of ski retreats, snow skiing. And my wife picked up snow skiing a lot quicker than what I did. It was a contact sport for me from the very beginning. I think I started off with this fantasy, that we all have. I thought I'd get this tall Swedish blonde to teach me skiing, and I got this short, plump Brooklyn girl. But anyway, it just didn't go well. And by the way, if you're going to try snow skiing, take lessons, or you'll have the life expectancy of a fruit fly. Just, any sport that has an ambulance at the bottom of the hill, just, respect it. And so I took lessons, but, I just didn't do as well as I thought I would. And so this particular ski time, I was the leader. I was speaking to people at night, and we would ski during the day. And we did it the first day, and the second day I decided I'm just not going to ski. It wasn't a good experience. I'm not going to ski. And by the way, if you want to go snow skiing, here's a couple of exercises to help you. Just find some steps and run up those steps and come down without your legs, just on your bottom. Boom, 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 boom. And then do that again. Run up there and boom, 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 boom. Do that about 5 or 6 times, and that'll get you almost ready for skiing, but not totally ready. Then just take a wall and run into the wall. Just run into the wall. And it'll knock you down. And then have somebody put ice down your back as you're trying to get up. Just put lots of ice, and then pay them lots of money for doing that. Oh, here's lots of money. Here, lots of money. Let's kind of get you ready for skiing. So I decided I'm not doing that today. I'm going to sit in the hot tub, And so my wife comes along and said, what are you doing? I said, I'm sitting in the hot tub. I'm taking the day off. She said, you're the leader here. You're telling people how to live their lives, and you're going to take the day off? I said, yeah, I'm going to meditate. I'm sore. She said, how could you be sore? You jog 2 or 3 miles a day. I said, I rarely run into trees or fall down when I jog. I'm sore. Well, finally, she just gives me that look, that women give men, and like you're sorry, no good, and kept on going. And so, but then a buddy of mine comes by. I said, what are you doing? I said, I'm just going to take it. He said, oh, man, we'll go with you. We'll take you. We'll take care of you. And, we won't go on any of those bad slopes. And so I said, well, okay, you sure? And I said, yes, I knew they did. They took me on these little slopes. And if you go skiing, like the green slopes are kind of like the bunny slopes. They're kind of like sweet names like Peach Blossom Hill and Apple River Run and things like that. And so we were doing all those sweet little things. And then we make the turn, and we're on a black slope. And there's nowhere else to go. And blacks, they don't even make any, they just say it's like Paul Bearer's Peak, stuff like that. They don't even try to sugarcoat it. And it's no matter what they say, it's kind of Greek for you'll soon see Jesus, because you're going to die probably. But so I'm looking down that slope, and I'm thinking, I'm going to die. I'm surrendered to the missions. I'm confessing sins I just thought about doing. I'm going to die. And so just as I'm about to die, all of a sudden I hear a voice from a guy over here, my buddy, who's an expert skier. Said, Charles, don't look down. Don't look down. Just ski to me. Make your little S's and ski over to me. And that's what I did. I made my little S's. I skied over to him. He said, don't look down. And he skis back across the mountain. He said, now ski to me. Don't look down. Ski. And we went, and he got me down that mountain. There are going to be some mountains in life you're going to need some help with. You're going to need some partners. Learn how to be a team player. Learn how to be a partner. Learn how to give up some stuff. You see, you'll find that when you give up some stuff, you get back stuff you never dreamed. I learned that early in life. I used to come home from school. I lived in the country, and I'd pick blackberries. In the South, have blackberries on the side of the road, in the old days. I don't know if they still do now or not. I live in Texas now, and we don't have anything growing in Texas. So, but I'd pick up some blackberries, and I'd just go home and eat some of those blackberries. They were so good. And sometimes I'd put some milk on them and eat those blackberries. And one day my mom said, why don't you give me some of those blackberries? I'm thinking, they're mine. They're mine. Never give any black. So I didn't give them to her. But she asked a couple more days, and finally I thought, well, my mom, you ought to give her some blackberries. And so finally I kind of picked more than usual. I had a little bit, and then I gave my mom a pretty good bit of blackberries. And, that's gone. That night, we had blackberry cobbler. And I thought, a lot in life comes when you're able to give what you think's important and partner with somebody else. Matter of fact, later on, I found out about fig preserves. A lot of other stuff my mom can do. A lot of partners in life that will reduce the stress level. If you just decide, I'm going to do this, and I'll partner with this person and let them do that. I married my wife. Her father was different. He was a scientist. He was an engineer. Graduated from Ohio State University. Worked on the Manhattan Project. Matter of fact, pulled the switch on the first nuclear reactor in this country. Brilliant man. But a scientific man. I'm a preacher's kid. That's why I became a psychologist. I grew up in a parsonage, and so I was a preacher's kid. It was a different world. He was asked scientific questions at the table. My house, we asked knock-knock jokes at the table. Different world, what I grew up in. And so he would say, when this circuit does this, what does this circuit do? And I'm thinking, I don't care. Just that kind of guy. Well, we got married, and so he came to my house, and I'm his only son-in-law, and so he just came, and he's a serious guy. I didn't say much, just kind of, had one of those plastic pocket protectors, and dressed at Nerds R Us, that kind of guy, and just writing things down, just kind of looking, writing things down. I'm thinking, man, what is he doing? Finally, he said, Charles, I got a list of things broken in your house. You need to get your toolbox, and we need to fix it. Well, I didn't have a toolbox. I had a mechanical bypass very early in my life. I didn't even know when they took it out, but they took it out. And so only thing I had was like WD-40 and duct tape. If you couldn't tape it or spray it, I didn't know what God wanted me to do with it. But I'm a man, so what do? I do what most men do. We lie. We cover. I said, I get my toolbox, be right back. Ran downstairs, called my neighbor, said, man, I got to have your toolbox. Meet me across the street. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Ran and got my neighbor's toolbox. By then, my father-in-law was looking for me. He said, man, you got a nice toolbox. I said, well, thank you. He said, let's go to work. I said, okay. He crawls underneath, said, I'll crawl underneath, you hand me the tool. So he crawls under there. He hollers out, Crescent. I open up that thing, and all I can find is Craftsman. Craftsman. I said, how about a Craftsman? I hand him a Craftsman. He laughs, comes back out, goes, but that's a Crescent. I said, well, good. He crawls underneath there again. He hollers out, Phillips. I'm looking for Phillips. All I can find is Craftsman. I said, how about a Craftsman this time? Well, it was a long day. You know what I mean? Long day. But see, my father-in-law was 54 years old at the time. And that's the difference between men and a savings bond. They say a savings bond eventually matures. Some of us men never mature. We still got that ego. And so he thought he had to be like me. So I was always telling him jokes and funny stories. He didn't know any jokes and funny stories, so he tried to memorize humor in uniform out of the Reader's Digest. So he would forget the joke. He'd say, the general said, and he'd try to read it and then tell me. It was awful. I wouldn't know when to laugh. I'd say, is it over? He'd say, yeah. That's funny, Pop. That's funny. You talking about stress? Every time it came, I would try to find a toolbox. Finally, I just set old Pop down. I said, Pop, I can't handle this stress. I said, look, I think I've had a mechanical bypass. I don't have a toolbox. I don't do any of this stuff. I get stressed out. I got to go borrow one every time you come. And he smiled and looked at me and he said, those jokes I tell you, they aren't very funny, are they? I said, they're the worst I've ever heard. From then on, we had a great relationship. He came to my house, brought his own toolbox. I gave him a list of everything in my house he needed to fix. All I had to do was walk around and tell him funny stories while he worked. It was great. Why? Because we decided to partner in doing something together. Decide who you are, but partner with somebody else to be the very best you can be. So P.E.O.P.L.E. L stands for long term. What will stress you out in life is you trying to decide what's good and what's bad. Most of you live long enough. It's not what's good and what's bad. It's life. You're not going to know what's good and what's bad. I promise you. Here's what my college roommate said. He came back to the dorm and said this. Life is not worth living. His high school sweetheart, the girl he wanted to marry him, had rejected him. And he was what I call the urge to merge stage. You know that stage of life when one gland's calling out to another gland, let's get together. Hormone heaven stage of life. And by the way, that's a great stage to life to be in, but it's a pitiful stage to watch, isn't it? I used to do premarital counseling, and I just quit because I got sick of looking at it. I'll just be honest with you. I got sick of looking at it. I wanted to say, take your hands off each other and listen to me. They don't listen. I'd try to shock them into reality. I'd say something like, have a job? No. Finish school? No. Got any money? No. Got a place to live? No. How you going to live? Love. And then they jump on each other again. You know that stage. I wanted to say, I give you 5 years for this body chemistry to turn to toxic waste. but I'm a nice guy, so I'll say something like, why don't you register paper plates at Toys R Us? Because you don't know what you're doing. I mean, and we've all been there, haven't we? And so, but this guy thought it was the end of the world. And maybe that's happened to you. Maybe you got rejected in high school or college, and you thought it was the end of the world. And then what happens? Well, remember Garth Brooks' song, Thank God for Unanswered Prayer? You go back for that high school reunion 30 years later, somebody says, that's her or that's him. And what do? You go, oh, thank God for unanswered prayers, don't you? You don't know what's bad and what's good. The fact of the matter is, sometimes the things you think are the worst things becomes the best thing. Good things take a long time. Take the long-term approach to life. So, L stands for long. E stands for encouragement. You want to be able to relate to people. Decide to be an encourager. Why? Because most of the world is discouraged. Well, let me ask you, how many of you get too much encouragement? I mean, you're sick of it. Everywhere you go, people clapping for you, telling you how wonderful you are, how fantastic you are. Your kids carry around pictures of you in their wallet. These are my parents. I love my parents. Look at this outfit my mom has on. Aren't they cute? Any of your kids carry around pictures of you? I doubt it. Matter of fact, you get so sick of this encouragement, you want to get away from it. So you get in a car and you drive off, and a policeman pulls you over and says, man, you're driving so good, let me give you some money this time. Here, just take all this. Is that the way your life is? No. Matter of fact, if you're honest, some of you today are discouraged. Learn to be an encourager. It's one of those innate needs we all have. Remember when your kids were young and you took them to like Six Flags or one of those places, and you put them on a carousel, and you tried to go get a Diet Coke, and you'd have to wave. Yeah, I see them. That's good. Well, I'll be right back. No, they're coming around again. Yeah, I see them. I see them. That's good. I see them. They're coming. And you wave every time they come around that stinking thing, don't you? Why? Because we all want to be encouraged. We all want to. So learn to encourage. You say, well, how do you do that? Here's how you do it. You're able to touch the personhood and not the performance. You're able to touch the heart. And I want to convince you, in this last little time we have, that if you can touch the heart of a person, the task of their hands will get better. And I'll prove that to you. I was living in Albuquerque, New Mexico at the time. Family flew in Atlanta, rented a car, we were going on vacation. And we stopped at the Cracker Barrel restaurant. I'm a Southern boy, so I was looking for a good old-fashioned cholesterol picnic. Just fry everything. And you're in the South. That's what you do. You fry everything. You couldn't deep fry lettuce, so you invented salad dressing. Let's put stuff on it if we can't fry it. So, hey, I like that. So I was looking forward to it. Unfortunately, the waiter was the worst waiter in existence. I mean, he was awful. He was terrible. He was so slow that by the time he got back with the water, I said, are you our waiter? I thought maybe you'd grown a mustache while you were gone or something. You've been gone so long, and I wouldn't recognize you. Are you the one that came days ago, it seems like? Well, just kind of get him going a little bit. Then he came back with the drinks, the Diet Coke, and they were all wrong. I mean, every one of them was wrong. I'm thinking in my mind, this kid's IQ test came back negative. I mean, if fish is brain food, he's got to eat a whale. We're in serious trouble here. And so I'm getting irritated. You ever get just irritated? And I'm getting irritated with this young man. He's just so incompetent, so slow. And my girls, they know when I'm getting irritated. So they're kicking me under the table, Act like an adult. They're kicking me under the table, And I wanted to say I'm on vacation, but I didn't. And so I'm just irritated. Well, as I'm sitting there, I just decided this is pitiful. Messed up my meal, looking forward to it. I'm just going to sit here and pout. You ever done that? Just decide to make myself miserable. But my girls, they're totally ignoring this young man's pitiful behavior. I mean, they're treating him like a real person. I mean, they're talking to him. They found out this is his first job. I probably could have told them that. But they found out he's recently married, found out his wife's having a baby. His mother-in-law is coming to live with him. He's all stressed out about that. And he's asking my teenage daughters for advice about how to get along with his mother-in-law. And they're giving it to him. And they know nothing. And he's listening to them. But as I'm watching that, he's starting to become better. Matter of fact, he's getting downright good. And it's almost as if, that small voice on the inside, I call it God, says, look what's happening there. You're the hotshot motivator. Your teenage girls know nothing, and they were able to motivate this young man, and you couldn't do it. And I thought, how? You see, they totally ignored his pitiful performance, and they just went right to his personhood. I told that story, and I was actually speaking at a car dealer convention. One of the car dealers had an experience a couple of weeks later, and he's told me this story. He's the head of a Mercedes dealership. He said, one day I started looking at the car washes, and a Mercedes car wash is rated from 1 to 10. He said, we get a survey, and they're always 10s. Because it's a Mercedes. I mean, it's a $100,000 car. So they expect a 10 car wash, and that's what we give them. I mean, it's perfect. But all of a sudden, I started getting 8s and 9s. And I thought, what? Same guy's been washing these cars for 10 years. I'm going to go fire his rear ends. What I'm going to do. What does he mean, get 8? And then I thought of that Cracker Barrel story. And I thought about that shrink, Charles. What did he say about touching the person's heart and the task of the hand to take care of itself? He said, I decided I'm going to give that a shot. He said, and I had to talk to myself. And remember, we do talk to ourselves. He said, as I walked down the car wash, I'm saying, don't bring up car washes. Don't bring up car washes. Don't bring up performance. Don't bring up car washes. He said, I had to psych myself up. And I got down there, and I just said, hey, guy, how's it going down here? Started asking about his family. Started talking to him. I said, how's everything working down here? He said, the refrigerator got broken a couple of days ago. The handle's off. It's not cooling. So we don't have any cold water. We got to go all the way up to the dealership to get water. And you can imagine Dallas, 100-degree weather. He's thinking about that guy who had to walk all the way up to the dealership and all the way back to the car wash. He said, well, what else could I think I can get that fixed? What else could I help you with? He said the microwave. He said, we had one, seemed like years ago, but nobody ever, and if we could just have a microwave, we could heat up our sandwiches. We wouldn't have to go up to the dealership to have, to heat up our lunch. And we have to walk all the way back. He said, I think I can get that done. He said the next day, I got a microwave, and I got the refrigerator fixed. He said, I left the guy, and I promise you, I never said car wash. Had to bite my lip a couple times. Never said it. 2 days later, started looking at the surveys. 10, 10, 10. And I thought, that principle works. Somebody out there right now, you got a problem with the task of their hands, and the more you harp on it, the worse it's going to get. But if you figure out a way to touch their heart, task their hands will take care of themselves. You say, well, how do you wrap this thing up? Well, a little dorky, really. To touch somebody's heart, you just love them. Just love them. It's the principle that works. In fact, I like country music. Some of you know some country music songs. Most of it's pitiful, isn't it? I mean, Papa loved Mama, Mama loved men, Mama's in the graveyard, Papa's in the pen. There's no redeeming social value there whatsoever. But every now and then it comes out with a good one. Not my wife ran off with my best friend and I miss him. Not that one. They came out with one that went something like this: the greatest man I never knew lived just down the hall. And every day we said hello, though we never touched at all. He was in his paper and I was in my room. How was I to know he thought I hung the moon? The greatest man I never knew, I guess I'll never know. He never had too much to say, too much was on his mind. And now it seems so sad that everything he gave us took all he had. The days turned to years, the memories to black and white. He grew cold like an old winter wind that blew across my life. The greatest words I never heard, I guess I'll never hear. The man I thought would never die, he's been dead almost a year. Well, he was good at business, but there was business left to do. He never said he loved me. I guess he thought I knew. Decide to make love your business. I promise you, business will start to be pretty good. I call it the Chad principle. He was a third grader, And he was a little slower than the other third graders, but he had a good heart. And one day Chad came home and asked his mom, said, "Mom, I want to make a Valentine, a homemade Valentine for every kid in my class." Well, that's what they did. They worked on those homemade Valentines, and Valentine's Day he came off with a sack of Valentines. Mother knew that sometimes Chad's ideas didn't go over too well, so she decided to make some chocolate chip cookies just in case it didn't work. Well, she heard the door open, and she thought, "I better go get the cookies." She's in the kitchen as the door opened. She heard Chad say these words, "Not a single one." She thought, "Oh no, he didn't get a single Valentine. His heart must be crushed. Forget these cookies. I'm going to go give Chad a hug." So she started down the hall. Just as Chad turned and she saw his face, she was expecting maybe even a tear, but surely a frown. I mean, not a single one. But he had that same old silly grin he always had. And here's what Chad said. "Not a single one, Mom. I didn't miss a single one. I had a Valentine for every kid in my class, Mom. I didn't miss a single one." Let me tell you what Chad understood. And if you understand this, I promise you, it'll change your life. He understood that good could flow from him. Good didn't have to flow to him. Let me tell you, most people get up every morning. They start to think, if good things flow to me today, it's going to be a great day. And they don't make it past traffic. But great people get up every morning thinking, good things are going to flow from me. And if you decide to do that, here's what I've discovered. Eventually, in the long term, great things start to come back to you. Relate better. Stress less. Make love your business. I promise you, business will be good. Thank you.